All right, let's just dive right in. You ever wonder if there's a way to connect, timeless wisdom with one of the most practical decisions we all have to make, choosing a career? Well, today we're going to explore a really unique educational approach that does exactly that, weaving together faith, ancient scripture, and the real-world choices we face.
And it all kicks off right here. This single verse from Romans is pretty much the bedrock of the entire philosophy we're about to unpack. It sets up this powerful contrast, right? Two ways of thinking, one that leads to destruction and another that leads to life and peace. Just keep that idea in your back pocket as we go.
And this brings us to a really critical question the source material wants us to think about. I mean, we spend years in school, right? Piling up facts and knowledge. But is that really the same thing as gaining wisdom? Are we just building clever minds that can turn around and make destructive choices? Or are we actually cultivating hearts that lead to a peaceful, righteous life? It's a big question.
That question, it leads us straight into our first section, which digs into the core problem this material identifies, an education system that's kind of lost its moral compass.
So what does it even mean to be carnally minded when we're talking about school? Well, think of it like this. It's knowledge that's totally separated from any spiritual or moral foundation. It's all the how-to without any of the why we should. And what this creates, according to the source, is a culture packed with educated people who are brilliant, but who still end up making choices that hurt themselves and everyone around them.
So the alternative, of course, is being spiritually minded. And this is where learning isn't just about memorizing facts, it's about building character. It's about aligning everything you learn with God's Spirit, which this curriculum believes is the only real path to a life of true integrity and ultimately peace.
Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? Well, that brings us to a curriculum that's designed to forge that very path, a path to life and peace. And here's the proposed solution, a series of educational books called the Godly Learners series. Its whole mission is to be a direct answer to the problem we just talked about. It doesn't try to separate faith from algebra or history from morality. Instead, it just weaves them all together.
The end game here is really holistic. You can see how the goals kind of build on each other. It starts in the individual classroom, mixing truth into every subject, but it scales all the way up to the societal level. The ultimate aim? To ground entire communities in peace.
Now, this is where it gets really, really interesting. How does a philosophy like this actually play out in a classroom? Let's look at a case study from a 6th grade math lesson that connects ancient biblical figures to something super practical, modern career planning.
First up, Abraham. Now, we usually think of him as a patriarch, right? But this lesson reframes him as something you might recognize today, a business owner. He owned flocks and herds, and that was his income stream.
And just look at these skills. Managing wealth, overseeing workers, making smart decisions. I mean, these are the pillars of business management today. The lesson connects Abraham's story directly to the need for learning modern skills like budgeting and leadership. It's a perfect parallel.
Next up, we meet Lydia from the book of Acts. And she wasn't just a seller of purple cloth, she was a full-blown entrepreneur in the luxury goods market, a true trailblazer of a businesswoman.
Her success? It required a deep understanding of her product, her customers, pricing, and trade. I mean, what is that if not sales and marketing 101? This example shows students that the principles of commerce are absolutely timeless.
And here it is, the direct academic tie-in. The lesson doesn't just tell the story, it uses it as a prompt for a math problem. If Lydia sold 20 cloths at $50 each, how much did she make? This is where it all comes together, morality, history, and mathematics, all in one simple, powerful exercise.
So our final example is Noah. And in this lesson, he represents the incredible value of skilled trades. Think about it. He wasn't just following orders. He was a master builder executing a ridiculously complex project.
Building that ark required precision, tons of math, and just immense diligence. These are the exact same skills needed in modern carpentry, engineering, and project management. The lesson really highlights that following a plan and working with your hands is a truly noble and valuable calling.
So, after exploring these biblical role models, the lesson pivots. It starts helping students make their own practical decisions. It's time for them to start calculating their own calling.
Now, what's so interesting here is how it grounds the whole lesson in 21st century reality. It just lays the data out side by side, the cost, the time, the potential income for getting a college degree versus a trade certificate. There's no judgment here. It's just the facts.
So here's the fundamental trade-off, right? The college path is a bigger, longer investment for a potentially higher long-term payout. The trade path is a faster, way more affordable route to a really solid income. The lesson isn't saying one is better than the other. It's saying students need to weigh these very different types of investments.
And this is the crucial point. The lesson empowers students to make an informed choice. It walks them through considering their personal skills, their financial reality, and their willingness to train. And notice that final step, grounding all that practical planning in prayer. It's about making a wise choice, not just a smart one.
And all of this leads us to our final and maybe most important takeaway. The whole point of this kind of education isn't just about landing a good job. It's about building a good life.
This quote from Ecclesiastes just sums up the core message perfectly. Money is a shelter, absolutely. It provides for our needs. But wisdom is a greater shelter. It preserves and protects our actual lives in a way that money and knowledge by itself just can't.
And that's really the bottom line. Whether a student becomes a doctor through college or a plumber through a trade school, the ultimate goal is the same: to build a future that is protected and guided by divine wisdom, making sure their knowledge is always used for good.
So, we end where we began, with a question for you to think about. Beyond the degrees, the certificates, and the job titles, what's the real foundation you're building your future on? Is it just knowledge, or is it wisdom?